So here we are, the basic word order of English sentences, how to use it correctly and effectively. Now, first of all, let's take a quick look at the agenda for this lesson. We have 4 items on our agenda. Number 1, what is word order? Number 2, the basic word order, SVO. 3, the big picture, SVOCA. And number 4, different types of word order, of course, with copious examples. So let's begin to take these items one by one. What is word order? Word order refers to the way English speakers arrange words in a sentence in order to convey meaning. The order of words is important for the following reasons. Number 1, meaning, conveying your intended meaning. When you use a specific word order, it enables you to convey your intended meaning. Now, the second reason is clarity. Word order enables you to communicate your ideas clearly. Let's look at 2 examples, 2 sentences. And from this, you will understand that the meaning of a sentence in English depends on the word order. If you change the order of the word order in a sentence, you change the meaning automatically. Now, let's look at these 2 examples. Sentence A, Mark killed a snake. B, a snake killed Mark. Now, you will understand that Mark killed a snake is not exactly the same thing with a snake killed Mark. In Mark killed a snake, Mark is the killer and it is the snake that dies. In sentence B, the snake is the killer and it is Mark that dies. So you see that when you change the word order in sentence A, Mark is the subject, killed is the verb, and the snake is the object. So you see the arrangement of words in sentence A. In sentence B, a snake is the subject, and by the way, the subject is the doer of the action expressed by the verb. A snake in sentence B is the subject, killed is the verb, and Mark is the object, the receiver of the action. So that is exactly what word order does. When you change the word order in a sentence, you change the meaning. So it means that using the appropriate word order enables you to communicate your intended meaning. Now, we are going to look more at the word order, all right? Now, the basic word order in English is the SVO, all right? The SVO word order, in which a sentence begins with a subject, followed by a verb, and then an object. Now, S stands for subject, and subject means who does the action or who is being talked about. Now, V stands for verb, and verb is the word that expresses doing or being. The verb indicates the action or state of being. O stands for object, and the object receives the action of a verb either directly or indirectly, all right? Now, let's look at some specific examples. Messi scored a goal. Now, let me get the annotation here and draw your attention to the word order in each sentence. So when you look at sentence I, you discover Messi scored a goal, okay? Now, Messi is the subject, scored is the verb, and a goal is the object. Sentence II, Adichie wrote the book. So you look at it again. Adiche is the subject, wrote is the verb, and the book is the object. Sentence, I, Jude slapped Judith. Okay, again, you see that Jude is the subject, slapped is the verb, and Judith is the object. So that is exactly, every sentence has a definite structure, and the structure is determined by the word order. The word order is the way in which words are arranged in a sentence. So if you arrange words in a sentence, how you arrange the word determines the structure of the sentence you have formed. And that goes a long way, you know, in conveying the meaning. So that is how important the word order is. And that is why we are giving it attention in this particular lesson. So let's undo these marks and go to the next item on our agenda. Now, let's look at the big picture. SVOCA, an English sentence may be seen as having 5 units known as elements of sentence, all right? Now, the word order of a sentence is usually a combination of some or all these elements, okay? Now, S stands for subject, as we earlier saw, and that is who does the action or who is being talked about. V stands for verb and stands for doing or being. It is the word that indicates the action or state of being. The O stands for object, and that is the receiver of the action of a verb, either directly or indirectly. Then we have 2 other elements, the complement and the adjunct. C stands for complement, and the complement completes the meaning of a sentence. When you have a sentence and the meaning is not complete, something is missing, the complement is likely to complete the meaning of the sentence. Then A stands for adjunct. Adjunct indicates when, where, how, why, to what extent, and so on and so forth, that something happens. We are going to look at all these one by one. Now, the big picture here has to do with the 5 elements of a sentence. And this shows that your word order is a combination of some or all of these elements. Now, let's go further to look at how it works. And so, at this point, we are going to examine the rules that govern how these elements are arranged to form various sentence structures. Okay, so let's now go and look at the various combinations, how these various elements of a sentence can be combined. All right, we can combine them to form different structures. We can have different types of word order. And let's look at the examples. Now, the first type is the SV word order, where we combine the subject and the verb. Now, this happens when the verb is intransitive. It doesn't require an object. So you simply combine the subject and the verb. For example, the man died. The man died. That is one sentence structure that we get when we combine 2 elements, the subject and the verb. And, you know, you can use this kind of sentence with this type of word order to communicate meaning in different ways, all right? Now, the second one is the SVO structure, which we earlier saw, which actually is the basic word order. When English speakers speak or write, in most cases, they naturally think in this way. They think about who does what. That is the basic structure. the subject, the verb, the object. For example, David sang songs. David sang songs. And you can have a lot of other examples that have this structure. Now, you can pause this video and you think of examples that have this structure, examples of English sentences with this particular structure. Then the third one is the SVA, subject, verb, adjunct. For example, he sang well. The S here, he stands for the subject, sang for the verb, and well for the adjunct. Of course, as you can see here, the adjunct can be a single word adverb, or it could be an adverbial phrase. Now, the fourth type of word order is the one with the structure SVC. For example, Jane is beautiful. Now, C here stands for complement. Jane is the subject, is the verb, and beautiful is the complement. Now, why do we say that the complement is that element that completes the meaning of a sentence? Now, let's look at this. Now, if you say Jane is the sentence complete? No. If you are discussing with someone and you say Jane is, the listener will be listening for you to complete the statement you started. Jane is what? That is naturally the question that arises. And so the complement is needed, excuse me, to complete the meaning of the sentence. All right? Now let's look at the fifth type of word order, and that is the SVOC structure. Jude called Judith a bitch. Now, you can see again, the complement is the last one there, and let's see how it completes the meaning of the sentence in this fifth example. Now, Jude stands for subject, called stands for verb, and O stands for Judith. A bitch stands for complement. Now, if you say Jude called Judith, of course, there is a line of thought in which, you know, this could be a complete sentence. If you say he probably just called Judith to come to him, or he called Judith on the phone. But the meaning here is a different thing. You know, it's like he is abusing, I mean, he abused Judith, you know, by calling her something. So in that intended meaning, something is missing. So when you say Jude called Judith, someone will ask, called Judith what? And so the complement is a bitch. That completes the meaning. That's an abusive word. Jude called Judith a bitch. Now let's go to the next slide, and we look at the remaining examples, you know, the remaining types of word order and their examples. Let's look at word order type number 6, and we have the SVOO. Mark gave Mary a bag. Mark stands for subject, gave for verb, Mary for object, indirect object. You know, there are two types of objects here. Mary is the indirect object. A bag is the direct object. Now, you may be wondering, why should Mary be the indirect and the bag the direct? Now, if I hold something, if I'm having, assuming this is, of course, this is not a bag, let me use this to present a bag, for example. This is actually not, you know, okay. So now, if I were Mark and I decide to give this to Mary, then first I handle the bag. That's why it's the direct object. So the action of giving, the action of the verb gave starts with the bag. That's why it's the direct object, because before you give someone the bag, you first lifts the bag, then you stretch your hand to give the bag to Mary. Mary is the receiver of the bag. And by the time Mary receives the bag, the first action has been done on the bag. So the bag is the direct object and Mary is the indirect object. Well, I hope that actually explains the meaning of the direct and indirect objects, because some people get confused as to why one should be direct and the other should be indirect. Now let's look at the word order type number 7. We have SVOOA. Debbie stands for subjects here, and bought stands for verb. Dom is the indirect object. Shirt is the direct object, and then yesterday is the adjunct. Debbie bought Dom a shirt yesterday. All right. So when you look at it, you see that that's another type of word order. It has the structure SVOOA. Now, the last but not the least in this lesson is the type number 8, which is VSVOA. Will you buy it tomorrow? So V stands for verb. So this actually is an exception to the basic rule, because here the verb begins the sentence, and that is what happens when you want to ask a question. The verb comes first in a sentence. Will you buy it tomorrow? Did you do the assignment yesterday? Any kind of question you ask, in most cases, we start with a verb. So that is the structure. Will is the verb, you, the subject, buy, the verb, it, the object, and tomorrow, the adjunct. All right, so this is where I want us now to, let's get to where we look at this whole thing from a different perspective. And here we want to look at it from the perspective of the 5 W's and H. The 5 W's and H are who, what, where, when, how, and why. All right, so we have arranged them in the order. So in other words, to actually make this clearer to you, you should understand that the order of the different elements of a sentence can be viewed in terms of these WH words and the and how. All right, who, what, where, when, how, and why. Now, I earlier explained the subject and the verb as who does what, all right? The SVO, already we explained it as who does what. Who stands for the subject, the doer of the action, and what stands for the verb, the action. And then, does stands for, who does what. Does stands for the verb, all right? And what stands for the object. So who does what? These two already covers, the SVO structure. So a sentence usually begins with who, and that is a subject, followed by what, a verb. All right, so let's look at this. Mary came. Now, so if you say Mary came, all right, so we have a subject and a verb, okay? So since we have this Mary came, all right, then if it is a transitive verb, if a transitive verb is used, okay, it requires an object as part of what. But if it is an intransitive verb that is involved, or it is even a transitive verb and we are using it intransitively. Now, you can just combine the subject and the verb as we saw in our previous examples. So Mary came is a sentence with the SV structure. But if we use a transitive verb like sang, then it requires the object. For example, Mary sang a song. All right? Now, in this case, we have been able to cover who did what. Mary sang a song. Now, after this, other elements can follow in this order. Where, when, how, and why. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule, which I will explain. Let's look at the example. Mary came where? To Lagos. When? Yesterday. Why? For a seminar. So you see, this, if you look at it, this is naturally how an English speaker arranges the words in a sentence to convey the intended meaning. All right? So naturally, you convey your ideas by arranging these elements of a sentence. Mary came where? To Lagos. When? Yesterday. Why? For a seminar. Now, if you say, put all the words together, then what we have is Mary came to Lagos yesterday for a seminar. All right? And that covers who, all right? What, where, when, and why. All right? Then let's look at another example. Mary sang a song. And the question is where at the assembly, when, this morning. Now, as I earlier said, now some of these elements can be combined to form a sentence. And we saw various possibilities when we looked at the various different types of word order with examples. Excuse me. So Mary sang a song where? At the assembly. When? This morning. When we put them together, Mary sang a song at the assembly this morning. Now let's move a little bit further. Still using the 5 W's and H, we look at more examples. For example, the president arrived where? Lagos. When? This morning. Why? To commission a new project. When we put them together, what we have is the president arrived Lagos this morning to commission a new project. You see, so this is naturally how ideas are put together when we arrange words in a sentence, all right? And we form English sentences, you know, with ease when we understand how these words are arranged. When we understand the word order of English sentences, then it becomes easy for us to arrange words and convey a meaning with clarity. Now, the second sentence, the second example, the car hit the gate. How? With force. So you can see now with force. That is how. Now, we have an exception to the rule, and in all, what we are saying here is that the adverbial elements can shift position because adverbs are mobile in a sentence. Now, if you are conversant with adverbs, you will discover that one main feature of adverbs is mobility. Adverbs are mobile. Sometimes you can find them at the initial position in a sentence. They can be in the middle. They can come at the end of a sentence. So because of the mobility of adverbs, we can, you know, we can switch positions sometimes. For example, when you say Mary sang, then the natural question it could also be how. How did Mary sing beautifully? That is an adjunct, all right? Mary sang beautifully. Where? At the assembly. When? This morning. If we put all the words together, we have distorted the order that we earlier stated. So there is an exception to every rule, all right? Now, when we put this together, what we have is Mary sang beautifully at the assembly this morning, okay? Now, let's look at the rules for arranging different parts of the same element. For instance, when we have this different parts of the same element, then we start from the smallest unit and we move to the largest unit. Now, let's begin with when. When you are talking about adverbs of time, for example. Now, the board meeting will be held when. You know, when can actually mean quite a lot. What is the exact time? On which day? Which week? Which month? Which year? So there are a whole lot of possibilities if it is going to be held, you know, in a long time to come. But let's look at the three different units. We start from the smallest at 4 p.m. The smallest unit among these three is 4 p.m. On Monday, 4 p.m. represent time. Monday represent date. Next week represent the week. So you have time of the day, you have day of the week, and you have week. So we begin from the smallest. So if we put this together, what we have is the board meeting will be held at 4 p.m. on Monday next week, all right? Now let's look at the example that has to do with different parts of the adverbial of place. All right, the adjunct of place, if you like. The family lived. The question is where? Where did the family live? In a bungalow, in a small village, in one of the eastern states in Nigeria. All this refer to where. In a bungalow is where. In a small village is where. In one of the eastern states is where. In Nigeria is where. All these are telling you about the place. All right? And there are 4 different parts of the same unit. All right? The same, of the same element. So we can put all of them together, and what we have is as follows. The family lived in a bungalow in a small village in one of the eastern states in Nigeria. So this is how to exactly arrange words in an English sentence. So we have been looking at the basic word order of English sentences, how to use it correctly and effectively. And I hope you enjoyed the lesson. If you did, make sure you subscribe to this channel and make sure you click on the bell icon so that whenever a new video goes live on the channel, you will be notified instantly. Now, if you really enjoyed the video, like it and share it with your friends, especially those who are desirous of learning the language and gaining proficiency in it. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or probably suggestions, leave them in the comments section below. If you browse through the description section, you might find a lot of videos that will help you more in achieving your goal of gaining proficiency in the use of English. I look forward to seeing you in the next class. Goodbye for now and remain blessed. Many thanks for watching today's video. A big thank you to all of you out there for being part of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, kindly subscribe to this channel. Subscribe now as a way of giving us support. For notification about new videos, click on the bell icon. You will find the bell icon. Click on it so that whenever a new video is uploaded, you will be instantly notified. If you have actually enjoyed the video, like and share the video with your friends and relatives. This is very important. If you have any comments, leave your comments below. Any questions, any suggestions, we would gladly receive them and respond promptly and positively to them. See you in the next video. I look forward to always seeing you